Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. When I bought my house last year, I thought I'd found my little slice of paradise. It was a cozy cottage on a large plot of land out in the countryside, with nothing but green pastures and farm animals as far as the eye could see. After years of living in the busy city, this was exactly the peaceful change of scenery I had been longing for. The first few months were absolute bliss. I would wake up to the rooster's crow, take long walks through the meadows, and spend evenings reading on my porch as the sun set behind the rolling hills. It was everything I had dreamed of. That is, until Karen moved into the neighborhood with her brutish husband and her devil children. I first met her when she came knocking at my door one Saturday morning. Before I even had a chance to say hello, she barged right in and started poking around my house. Can I help you?" I asked, completely bewildered by this rude stranger making herself at home in my cottage. "Yes, you can start by repainting that hideous exterior. Beige is not an acceptable color in this neighborhood," Karen barked without even making eye contact, her judgmental gaze scanning over my cozy interiors. I stood there in shock before finally finding my voice. "I'm sorry, who exactly are you and what are you doing in my house?" She let out an exaggerated sigh. "I'm Karen, president of the Oak Hills Homeowners Association, which you would know if you had bothered to attend even a single homeowner association meeting since moving here." My confusion only grew. "Oak Hills Homeowners Association? I'm not part of any homeowner association." Karen scoffed like I was the dumbest human on the planet. "Of course you're part of the homeowner association. This entire county is under our jurisdiction. As president, it's my duty to make sure every resident adheres to our community standards." I had dealt with overbearing homeowner association boards before, but this Karen lady took it to a whole new level. Before I could respond, she was already walking around with a clipboard, scribbling away and mumbling about all the changes I would need to make. "First order of business. This garden needs to go. Homeowner association rules clearly prohibit all vegetable gardens from being visible from the street," she barked. My anger was starting to rise, but I took a deep breath, determined to handle this civilly. "Karen, I'm sorry there seems to be a misunderstanding here. I purposely bought this cottage because it is not part of an homeowner association. I have no interest in joining." She let out a shrill, condescending laugh. "Oh, honey, that's not up to you. This entire county falls under our jurisdiction, whether you joined willingly or not. But not to worry. I'm here now to whip this place into shape." I had finally had enough of her arrogant attitude. I demanded that she leave my property at once. After getting an earful of threats about how she was going to make my life a living hell if I didn't comply, she stormed off in a huff. A few days later, I received a letter stating I was being fined $100 for not having an approved mailbox design. A few angry phone calls revealed that Karen had filed numerous complaints about alleged homeowner association violations on my property. She had photoshopped pictures to make it seem like I had rogue lawn decor and 3-car garage conversions, the works. It was obvious she was out to get me. I decided enough was enough. I got in touch with a lawyer who assured me that my property was not legally under any homeowner association jurisdiction, but Karen kept up her harassment campaign, slapping me with bogus violation after violation, demanding I change this or that to comply with her silly homeowner association rules. Over the next few weeks, the power-hungry homeowner association despot Karen proved she wasn't messing around. She revoked my parking rights, tried to ban my pets, reported me for loud noises when I was simply watching TV in the evenings. Her reign of terror had no end. The last straw came when I caught her recklessly spraying around chemicals on my property while I was away at work. I couldn't believe she had trespassed and tried to poison my pets and beautiful garden that I had tended to for months. It was time to fight back legally. My lawyer sent a strongly worded letter to Karen and her cronies on the Homeowner Association Board, making it abundantly clear that I was not under their jurisdiction, and any further harassment would be met with legal action. We figured that would be the end of it. How wrong we were. The very next day, I opened my front door only to discover Karen parked right on my front lawn, holding some metal stakes and ropes. Before I could say a word, she declared, "I'm just marking the homeowner association boundaries on this end of the neighborhood." She proceeded to hammer stakes into my lawn, tying ropes that went right across my property. That was the final straw. I immediately called my lawyer, who rushed over just in time to catch Karen red-handed trespassing and illegally staking claim to my property. He informed her that I would be pressing charges for harassment and property damage. Karen turned her fury on my lawyer, claiming that as homeowner association president, she had every right to survey the neighborhood boundaries. She kept citing ridiculous fake laws and rules to try and legitimize her actions, but my lawyer shut her down real quick. He presented the court documents proving my property had never been part of any homeowner association, as well as records showing I was the sole legal owner of the land. No matter what she tried, Karen had absolutely no legal jurisdiction here. Watching her face turn beet red when confronted with the paper trail proving she was in the wrong was priceless. All those weeks of hell she had put me through, finally coming back to bite her. To put the final nail in her coffin, my lawyer sent a letter to the legitimate county homeowner association informing them of Karen's unhinged behavior and fraudulent claims about her so-called role as homeowner association president in this neighborhood. Within a week, Karen and her family had vacated their house and relocated. I later learned the county homeowner association had initiated legal action against her for numerous violations, including trespassing, harassment, and fraud. Finally, I could breathe a sigh of relief knowing that Karen was out of my hair for good. The past few months had been an absolute nightmare dealing with her baseless claims and dirty intimidation tactics. But it showed that sometimes you just have to stand up for yourself against these bully Karens and set the record straight. In the end, the court documents and legal boundaries spoke for themselves. Karen had zero power over my property. Justice was served. I could finally go back to enjoying my little cottage on the meadow, soaking in the peace and tranquility I had yearned for all this time, and I lived happily ever after in my slice of country paradise, free from any more entitled Karens. The end. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I still remember the day my good friend Emily told me she was finally going to get revenge on her horrible bosses. Emily had worked in the HR department of a nursing home company for over 5 years. During that time, she became an expert at running payroll and knew the ins and outs of the system better than anyone. She was proud of her hard work and knowledge. Unfortunately, the higher-ups at the company didn't appreciate Emily's skills. They promoted man after man over Emily, despite her being more experienced and capable. The culture there was one of blatant favoritism towards male employees. Emily's manager was Sandra, the only other woman in a senior position. Sandra had badly broken her leg in a hiking accident and had to take medical leave for a few months to recover. While Sandra was out, the executives decided to replace her with a man named Chad. Not only did they give Chad Sandra's job, they paid him nearly 50% more than her previous salary. Chad knew next to nothing about HR or payroll. He spent more time schmoozing with the executives than doing actual work. Whenever he needed something done, he'd dump it on Emily's desk without so much as a please or thank you. Not only that, Chad made sexist comments towards Emily constantly, telling her she was too emotional or needed to be more logical like a man. Emily asked Chad multiple times for a raise, since she was doing the bulk of the complex HR work. Chad dismissed her every time, saying she didn't have the right experience. The final straw came when Sandra returned from medical leave. The executives informed her that Chad was now the head of HR indefinitely. She could have her old job back, but with lower pay and responsibilities. Sandra quit on the spot. She and Emily were close friends, and Emily seethed with anger at how shabbily Sandra had been treated. That day, Emily came to me and said, "I've had enough. I'm going to get revenge on this horrible company if it's the last thing I do." Here was her ingenious plan for retaliation. First, Emily used her admin access to the payroll system to set up an automated script. The script ensured that no matter what changes were made, her own paycheck stayed at her desired salary. Next, Emily went through the system and deleted all the documentation and manuals on how to run payroll. She was the only one left who understood it inside and out. Emily then waited until the prime opportunity. Every year, the entire HR department went on a retreat together right before a major company holiday. Right before the retreat, Emily turned in her resignation, effective immediately. She claimed it was due to personal reasons. This meant that during the busiest payroll week of the year, with bonuses and holiday pay to coordinate, the entire department was away and Emily was gone. When Chad returned and tried to run payroll, utter chaos ensued. None of the other employees had the expertise to make it work properly. Angry employees started quitting left and right when their paychecks were late or wildly incorrect. The executives panicked and tried desperately to get Emily to come back as a consultant. She refused repeatedly until they offered her an obscene amount of money. Emily returned temporarily and fixed payroll, but made sure to drag it out as long as possible. She stacked the system with more landmines, ensuring the company would need her again. In the end, Emily only had to work a few hours a month as a payroll advisor to the nursing home company. The money she made was far more than her previous salary there. The executives were helpless. They knew Emily despised them, but they couldn't run payroll without her. She had all the power now. As for me, I smiled and congratulated Emily on getting the perfect revenge on that toxic company. She happily works elsewhere now, but still gets enormous satisfaction knowing how much they rely on her to function. Emily proved that with brains and perseverance, any injustice can be repaid in full. The next one is a petty revenge story. Some info. I am disabled. I use a walking frame to keep me from falling over on a regular basis. With it being Christmas time, I have my frame decked out with cute hanging ornaments that include a set of jingly bells that chime as I walk. In other words, I'm hard to miss, as you can see and hear me coming. Currently, my mum is in hospital, so I am visiting her on the daily. Normally not a big deal, not so much today. Our city hospital has a courtyard that you have to cross to reach the front doors. Said courtyard is paved in cobblestones. Cobblestones are the bane of my existence. Uneven, lumpy, threatening to make me fall as my walker catches the edge of every single one, I swear. As I was shuffle-hopping my way across the courtyard this morning, trying very hard not to kiss dirt, a woman, let's call her Karen, came barreling by on her oversized electric scooter. She was easily going at her top speed, whatever that was, LOL, far too fast for an area filled with patients in wheelchairs on crutches, and me. Karen was a woman on a mission, headed right for the doors while clocking a Mach 10. She flew so fast and so close to me, she almost knocked me flat. I stared at her in shock as she zipped by without so much as a howdy do, let alone an apology. After I got steady on my feet, I contented myself with a huff and a glare at Karen's back and resumed my shuffle hop towards the doors. Hey, the Canadian glare of disapproval is not to be trifled with. Revenge time. When I got inside, I saw Karen having a chat with security. She wanted to skip the C-19 check-in station. He was telling her no. At that moment, Karen saw me come in and tried to beeline it to check in before me. Well, I wasn't about to let her flatten me again, so I hauled ass ahead of Karen and cut her off. Insert indignant huff behind me. I then had the most wonderful 5 minutes of pure petty vengeance. Since Karen was in such a huge hurry to get places, I slowed down and took my time talking to security at the check-in desk. Hello, it's such a pretty day, isn't it? Oh, you need my vaccine passport? It's on my phone, 1 sec. Oops, sorry, scrolled too far. Here you go. My ID now? Let me get that for you. You want me to sanitize? Sure. Very important. Yes. Let me make extra sure I do a good job. Back of my hands in between my fingers. Yes, I do need an inside mask, thank you. Let me just take a moment to change masks before I go into the hospital. All those vulnerable patients can't be too careful. Thank you for your help. You have a great day. Behind me, Karen was huffing and puffing. I'm very sure security knew exactly what I was up to as she was grinning so big ol' mow. When I was done and started my shuffle hop across the lobby, I heard Karen talking loudly behind me about being late. I gotta admit it warmed the bottom of my dying heart, and I was beaming behind my mask. Peppermint-scented perfection with some glitter on top. The next one is a malicious compliance story. To give a little backstory, I work at a medical facility, and the company is a very large employer in the immediate area. My wife and I both work for this company, albeit at separate locations. I work at the main facility, which is a significantly large campus in the next town over. This is a busy place, it's a large hospital, and I work nights. This is all relevant. Night shift and swing shift, or pretty much anyone starting at or after 4 p.m. is allowed to park pretty much anywhere. This is because most of our facilities are shut down and non-accessible to patients or visitors. The parking lot most of my coworkers and myself park in is actually next to a series of offices that were recently relocated, so it's even more empty and useless space than usual, especially at night. Out of nowhere, all the employers parking in this area are getting tickets from the company. It's patient parking, and employees must park in employee-designated areas. which are, of course, the gravel pit that's about a 20-30 minute walk from the main facility, or the back 40 that are just as far, just on a different side of the campus. Because the weather has been crap, and because I received a compliance warning ticket, I emailed my department manager and said I would be happy to follow the parking policy. So tonight, technically last night, I only just got home. I drive my happy little self to work, and I park a good 20 minutes from the main entrance. Then I called our security team. You see, our facility has in place a policy that at any time, literally any of the 24 hours in the day, any patient, visitor, or staff member may call the security office and ask for the courtesy shuttle to pick them up and escort them to any of the facilities on campus. So I did, and I let them know where I was parked, under a marked streetlight, very helpful, and told them I would be waiting for my escort to the main entrance. They came, after warning me that I shouldn't rely on them, and I let them know that if it was an issue they were welcome to provide to me, in writing, a reason why, so I would be able to, in turn, provide that to my supervisor. And this morning, at the end of my shift, I called and asked for someone to meet me at the main entrance so I could be escorted back to my vehicle. When I was dropped off at my car this morning, I asked if the security officer would be back tonight. We'd been making small talk, and I was being a bit of an ass. I told him I would be back and would be calling again if he wanted or needed to pass that on. Again, I was told that security is busy and has other concerns. I told him I would continue to park in the employee parking spaces, but given the unsafe weather conditions, I would be relying on security to escort me to and from the building, per our company's policy and procedures. I reminded him that any accident on company property, whilst I was either on my way to or out the door from work, is still covered under workman's comp, and let him know I would see him tonight. I'm pretty sure security does have much larger concerns, but until policy is actually set in ink that nights or evenings are exempt from the employee parking rules, I plan on continuing to be a compliant little asshole. The next one is an entitled People Story. I am 21, F, and I am a college student in my senior year. I was lucky enough to get 2 different jobs on campus. Not entirely relevant, but it ties in. I work in the residence halls at my campus. For both jobs, one pays me twice a semester, as it splits the pay for both my housing and meal plan as the job pays for it. The other I get paid every 2 weeks. Both jobs are laid back. Here's the problem. Whenever I get paid back the money that's left over from books and fees, my mom always expects me to give her some of the money. She even went as far as to go to my school's website to check the academic calendar to see when school refunds are expected to deposit. The week of deposits, she starts to question me on how much I'm getting back and how much I'm going to give her. I'll tell her that I'm getting enough back, as I don't want her to know how much, because she wants half of what I get. Specifically, I remember I gave her $700 of my refund because she found out how much I was getting back. At the time, it was my birthday, and I was unhappy about this because I wanted to use the money for myself. Somehow, she blew the money up in a few days and claimed she paid bills with it. Then proceeded to tell me that I'll have to pay for her meal as well as her fiancé's, not my dad, because they didn't have the money. I asked her what happened to the money I gave her, and she proceeded to guilt-trip me, and by saying you're supposed to help family, and I gave birth to you, and rocked you to sleep all those nights, and I was tired. Basically giving me the whole "you should help me because I gave you life" speech. She even tired to ask me for money to buy her fiancé a Valentine's Day gift. Fast forward to now, and I'm in a bind with money, and she tells me not to ask her for money, and she's not going to ask me for any. Not to sound bratty, but I felt it was unfair, especially since I have no choice but to give her my money and she never pays me back. But she expects me to pay her back. I'm just wait to go back to college at the end of July because I know I won't have to struggle because I'll have both of my jobs. The next one is an entitled Parent Story. Bit of context. I was in the armed forces as a military police officer. This story takes place when I was 23 and on leave for my first birthday at home in 5 years. Me and my friends were not drinking, and there were no drugs or distractions in the car at the time. I was also driving. It was around 2:00 in the afternoon when me and my friends stopped first at a light near the freeway. The light turned green, and when a car goes off the off-ramp and smashes into my car's driver's side door. The next thing I remember was the doctors telling me that I was in a critical condition and they had to put me in a medically induced coma, and that I was lucky to survive. What follows is what I am told is a month of surgeries and mayhem as a military recruiter has to come in and fill out all the needed paperwork to have me discharged, and that they would be taking the EP to court for injuring an officer. MP is the highest rank technically, and they are considered officers. After a month and a half, I awake and have to go to rehab. After 3 months of rehab, I learned that the military discharged me because of my injuries. I was no longer of use. I can't run for very long, and my left arm can't support a rifle for very long, especially with recoil. My back hurts if I overwork it. Now where's the EP? You may ask. Well, after the fact, the entitled parent started flipping out and got angry. The US military was taking her and her husband to court, and I will be too. The military won my medical expenses to be paid by her. On top of this, the entitled parent kept claiming it was my fault, and that her baby had get to soccer practice and that I should have waited for her to pass before going. She even tried to kill me and my friends so we couldn't testify while we were in hospice. The EP even demanded that we be removed from critical state and that her baby was more hurt. He was completely fine and said that she's a doctor. She actually is, and her husband is a lawyer. I won $3.1 million in the case and was discharged from the Army. The EP landed jail time for reckless driving and attempted murder and more things related to the accident. Morale of the story: don't duck with the government, they do not take it well. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.